I know it's always dangerous to make forecasts, and especially right now. How many of us have been humbled time and again during this
And
crisis?
you know that being from an economist background, right?
I do. Yeah, we're even worse, almost as bad as the weather forecasters. But anyway, I want to shift a little bit on the supply chain to you keep bringing up these longer term issues. And obviously, we're all focused, like you said, on when is my favorite product going to be back on the shelf, or when is the car lot going to have more options again. But I think you're right that beyond the immediacy of this crisis is what are these longer term investments that the United States and other nations need to be making to really help supply chains? And I wonder kind of, there's so much we could talk about, but could you pull out your top two or three that, when you talk to government officials or company leaders, what are you urging people to really think about, make this investment for the long term?
I'd say the first and the most important, Heather, will be, kind of reducing the complexity in the supply chain, which means that we will continue to bring things closer to the end consumer in terms of manufacturing capability. And for that, I would say government can always help because, one of the biggest gaps we have is skilled workforce. And so the focus on what are the long-term areas where we can build manufacturing in different places in the world? How are you able to build the skilled workforce required to do that? And doing that in a planful way would be the top of the list in terms of the most important thing we can do, because we definitely are in a place in time where the shift of supply chains is going to happen. And we're going to see that in our time. I always joke that, just like Tom Friedman wrote The World is Flat, he's going to have another book coming back, right, about how the world's going to be different in terms of manufacturing moving forward. So we have to be planful about that and say, what are the areas that we need to build the right skills in? Because everything doesn't fit everywhere. But for example, if electric vehicles and autonomous is the world of the future, are there very specific skill sets and manufacturing hubs that we need to build up, right, across the country? And how do we invest in that, right? What is the government's role in investing in that? So for me, that is the single most important thing, because the workforce has been retrained to become a services workforce, right? We have
Hmm.
lost the manufacturing capability and the skill set. While we want to do that and we talk a lot about it, that's going to require a very thoughtful educational path and a reskilling path that I think that the government can play a huge role in. So I'd say that is very important. And then the second, of course, is things like semiconductor investment. Recently the $50 billion investment that the government has talked about is a start. But significant investments like that have to be made to say, how do you make the R&D investment required? How do you make sure that you have the manufacturing capacity? So you have to pick the two areas, which is invest in manufacturing hubs across the country. And then the second is really focus on reskilling the workforce to be able to work in those locations.